Alexander the Great. Lover, friend, father of nations. This inspirational figure nursed an empire the likes of which the world has never known. His impactful rise to power changed a nation. This is the story of how he did it. Ancient Greece was located in southeastern Europe on a peninsula that extended from the Balkans into the Mediterranean Sea. Greece is mountainous, with many gulfs and bays, and has regions of scattered forests. Much of Greece is stony and suitable only for pasturage, but the other areas are suitable for growing wheat, barley, citrus, dates, and olives. Ancient Greece can be divided into three geographical regions: Northern Greece, which is very hilly and isolated; Central Greece, which is more mountainous and has poor soil and large ports; and the Peloponnese, which has scattered areas of both mountains and plains. Before the rise of Alexander the Great, Philip II turned Macedonia, which neighbors Greece to the north, into a primary military force in the Greek world. He developed his aristocratic and military prowess during his time as a hostage in Thebes under the tutelage of Epaminondas. After his return to Macedon in 364 BCE, his skills allowed him to gain the throne after the death of his brother and conquer most of the Greek city-states. His reign lasted successfully, including expansion both south to Greece and north to the lands of the Scythians. After his assassination due to familial insult and ties in 336 BCE, his son Alexander was able to take the throne, leading to great expansion. Alexander the Great was born in 356 BCE in Pella, the ancient capital of Macedonia. As a teenager, Alexander was trained in rhetoric and literature by Aristotle and developed an interest in science, philosophy, and medicine. When he took over the throne and secured his sovereignty over Greece, he started his expansion and conquered Asia Minor, then defeated the Persian forces of King Darius III in Anatolia and Mesopotamia. Once Alexander's army took over Persepolis, the capital of Persia, Alexander declared himself Shahanshah, the Persian title for King of Kings. He began to adopt Persian customs and culture, including dress and political ideas. Alexander kept the Persian administration because it was familiar to the people and easily adaptable. He replaced Persian officers with officers of his own army in order to maintain the framework of administration. Some Persians were allowed into his army as nobles or officials. He also married a Persian woman named Roxana, who was rumored to be the most beautiful woman in Asia. Alexander encouraged many of his soldiers to marry into Persian families, as well as to keep a lasting connection between the We'll just go back a little bit on that. Alexander encouraged many of his soldiers to marry into Persian families in order to keep a lasting connection between the cultures. Though Persian influence was obvious, Greek ideas were still evident.
At the beginning of 331 BCE, Alexander and his army entered Egypt. The Persian satrap, or provincial governor, located in Egypt, surrendered and welcomed the Macedonians. In April, Alexander then founded a city, which he named Alexandria after himself. The city was built to become the largest Hellenistic center in Egypt and as a connection between Greece and the Nile River. Alexandria linked Mesopotamia and Egypt across the Mediterranean Sea, becoming an important trading port. Alexandria became quickly the most important and populous city in the Alexandrian Empire. It was also a center of art and knowledge, containing Liberty, a library with several 100,000 volumes of information. After building one of the largest cities in Egypt, Alexander's army's confidence began to waver as Alexander drove them into the Indian subcontinent in 327 BCE. While doing this, he continued his movement towards combining Persian and Greek culture. At the Hephaestus River, Let me start over. At the Hephaestus River, Alexander's army refused to continue, and Alexander was forced to return to Greece. Throughout Alexander's expansions, the powerful city-state of Sparta was never conquered, despite attempts from both Alexander and his father Philip II. Here, during the height of the Alexandrian Empire, Alexander experienced a low point in his life. A close advisor, cavalry commander, childhood friend, and possible lover of Alexander, named Hephaestion, died of typhoid fever. An Arian of Nicomedes' book, The Anabasis, he states that Alexander flung himself on the body of his friend and lay there nearly all day long in tears and refused to be parted from him until he was dragged away by force by his companions. Alexander's grief was inconsolable, and Alexander himself died of unknown causes in Babylon in 323 BCE. Throughout the time of Alexander's empire, he conquered and maintained areas including Greek city-states, Persia, Egypt, nomadic steppe tribes, tribes in Afghanistan, and kingdoms in northwest India. Alexander founded around 70 cities and named about a quarter of them after himself.
During Alexander's reign, Greek society was dominated by the elite class, who were usually land-owning aristocrats. The aristocrats maintained dominance through land ownership. The empire was based on commerce but gave low social status to merchants. Compared to the status of merchants in India and China, they became socially more acceptable but still received a low status. After the fall of Alexander, many changes in society occurred. With no clear successor, a half a century of chaos ensued as many of his officers struggled for power over the empire. The empire was then divided into three major kingdoms: the Seleucid, the Ptolemaic, and the Antigonid. Historians called this era the Hellenistic Age because it was when Greek culture spread across northeastern Africa and western Asia after Alexander the Great's conquests. This period lasted from 323 until 30 BCE, when the last kingdom fell to Rome. This cosmopolitan age is commonly associated with the long-distance trade and communications, the rise of new institutions, new methods of scholarship and science, and the beginning of changes in art and literature. These three new kingdoms had a heterogeneous population, great cities, powerful rulers, and were all becoming Hellenized. This greatly differed from the small, homogeneous, independent city-states previously in Greece. Though the kingdoms fought many battles, the balance of power prevented any of the three from gaining power over the other two. The Seleucid kingdom controlled most of Alexander's conquests, including Mesopotamia, Syria, and parts of Anatolia. Because they controlled a large amount of territory, the Seleucids faced the greatest conflict as they lost territories in the Indus Valley and Afghanistan areas and were very susceptible to invasion. The monarchs of the kingdom ruled from the capital in Syrian Antioch. They maintained a system of city-states throughout the kingdom similar to those found in the original Greek Empire. The Seleucid kingdom controlled most of Alexander's conquests, including Mesopotamia, Syria, and parts of Anatolia. Because they controlled a large amount of territory, the Seleucids faced the greatest conflict as they lost territories in the Indus Valley and Afghanistan areas. They were very susceptible to invasion. The monarchs of the kingdom ruled from the capital in Syrian Antioch. They maintained a system of city-states throughout the kingdom similar to those found in the original Greek Empire.
The Ptolemaic Empire controlled Egypt as well as the Syria-Palestine area. The city of Alexandria, located between the Mediterranean Sea and the westernmost branch of the Nile River, served as the headquarters for the Ptolemies. The majority of the kingdom's population consisted of farmers on the Nile River. The society of the Ptolemaic Empire was most closely related to that of ancient Egypt, utilizing the administrative structure used by the pharaohs. The kingdom became very wealthy from having a monopoly over common goods such as oil, salt, and papyrus, and from heavy taxes and revenues. To encourage the Greeks to move to the kingdom from their homeland, the Ptolemies gave them areas of land and high ranks in society in exchange for skills in the military or administrative systems. The Antigonid Empire controlled northern Greece and Macedonia. Athens was a city in this compact and unicultural kingdom, and it served as a place for education, bringing in people from the Mediterranean and Western Asia areas-ish. Athens was a city in this compact and unicultural kingdom, and it served as a place for education, bringing in people from the Mediterranean and Western Asia. Religion in the Hellenistic Age consisted primarily of the worship of Greek gods, but was influenced by other religions in the area that were conquered by Alexander. Examples of new religious influences came from the goddesses in Egypt and gods in Syria. This gave people the opportunity to seek fulfillment in the present life as well as in the afterlife. As an alternative to religion, Hellenistic philosophy such as Stoicism and Epicureanism would have been common. The Stoics taught that destructive emotions resulted from errors in judgment, and Epicureanism is a philosophy based on the teachings of Epicurus. Astronomy was also widely studied during this period, and arguments regarding placement of the sun and earth in the universe was common. The Hellenistic Age was one of the most important ages in history, both scientifically and culturally, and was all inspired by the man, the legend, the hero, Alexander the Great.